Well, last night's town hall, it was all about the voters, so we asked, who do you think won round two?
Well, your responses are pouring in, with the majority saying Trump won. Grayson says Donald Trump was stellar and the absolute winner. Hillary was two-faced, as she always is.
Belinda disagrees, saying Hillary won the debate. She was calm, logical, and on target. She reinforced her concepts from the previous debate, plus she explained her plans for the country.
Brian posted on Twitter that Trump won last night for sure. He did fantastic and was well poised.
And Chuck W. emailed to say Trump destroyed Clinton with substantive answers and policies where she has none.
Joyce also saying Trump blew Hillary off her pedestal. Even the liberal moderators couldn't save her. Trump moved the conversation to the issues the voters care about this election. Well, we want to thank all of you for your feedback.
Keep them coming, though, because we're going to talk about it, the debate. What was your favorite line from last night? Weigh in right now on our Facebook page, #KeepTalking.
Oh, Fox and Friends starts right now, live from St. Louis. They've got Mike Pence on tap.
That'll be interesting.
This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton. Violent jihadist terrorists. We are not at war with Islam.
Obamacare will never work. I pay hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes.
I voted to close, I think, one of the loopholes he took advantage of.
Almost everything she's done in foreign policy has been a mistake, and it's been a disaster.
Donald says he knows more about ISIS than the generals. No, he doesn't.
We have a divided nation because people like her, and believe me, she has tremendous hate in her heart.
Right. As I recall, that was something I said about Abraham Lincoln.
And she lied. Now she's blaming the lie on the late, great Abraham Lincoln. That's one that I haven't. Okay, Honest Abe. Honest Abe never lied.
He wants to start, he can start. No, go ahead, Donald.
No, I'm a gentleman, Hillary. Go ahead.
I feel terrible. Was the debate last night? I thought it was tonight.
Brian is joking. He totally watched the debate. We were texting throughout the debate saying, what'd you think of that? What'd you think of that? Steve's live out there in St. Louis covering from that perspective.
That's right. The party's over. Everybody's sleeping in except Lee. We have one guy, Lee. Take a bow. Only Trump will beat ISIS. That's what Lee's sign says.
It's a slow-building crowd, Steve.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. Hey, you have one fan, Steve.
Yeah, all right.
It's so funny when you're out there covering it the day of. There's tight security, the campus, all the kids are out there, all the college students the next day.
Believe me, there is tight security. There are 75 guys looking at Lee right now.
And somehow he passed the inspection. Yeah, everyone's afraid to pat him down.
That's good to know. So you can't get too close to Steve Ducey.
All right. So, Steve, last night we have so many different angles to talk about. I mean, the tension, the show, the 95-minute show went a little bit over with two moderators, the town hall format, Donald Trump, who had his pre-press conference with the four accusers of Bill Clinton there. So the tension was extremely high.
Yeah, the debate lasted 7 minutes past the hour and a half it was supposed to last. Many people weren't sure if Donald Trump could recover. Personally, I thought he did a great job. What'd you think, Steve?
Well, I thought Donald Trump won. You know, after he'd had a couple of bad weeks out and about, and it didn't look that way going in, because if you noticed, as soon as they met on the stage, they didn't really meet on the stage. They were just on the same stage. They never shook hands. You could tell that the tension was absolutely there because Donald Trump, everybody knew he was going to apologize. But how big an apology was it going to be? Well, not only did he apologize and address the issue about the hot mic with Billy Bush, who, by the way, apparently has been suspended by NBC, he went on to talk about Hillary Clinton's husband who raped a woman. Here's all that in a minute and 26 seconds.
This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to my family. I apologize to the American people. Certainly I'm not proud of it, but this is locker room talk.
Like everyone else, I've spent a lot of time thinking over the last 48 hours about what we heard and saw. You know, with prior Republican nominees for president, I disagreed with them on politics, policies, principles, but I never questioned their fitness to serve. Donald Trump is different. I said starting back in June that he was not fit to be president and commander-in-chief.
If you look at Bill Clinton, far worse, minor words, and his was action. His was what he's done to women. There's never been anybody in the history of politics in this nation that's been so abusive to women. So you can say any way you want to say it, but Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women and attacked them viciously, 4 of them here tonight. And I will tell you that when Hillary brings up a point like that and she talks about words that I said 11 years ago, I think it's disgraceful, and I think she should be ashamed of herself, if you want to know the truth.
Can we please hold the applause?
And that was the moment. Everyone was wondering how he's actually, after the tape piece where he apologized, how he was going to handle that. The moderators got to it right away, and I thought he was calm. His delivery was very even throughout the 95 minutes, and I thought if you could handle that question, bring on taxes. And that's pretty much made it clear. I think everybody else made it clear that he was not going to snap and implode. It was game on. And, Steve, we also talked about the technique of taking a question in and then ending with how you wanted to end it. And he also showed he had that skill. He didn't really demonstrate that at Hofstra at all. And he did it in the first question there.
It was very good. He was listening to his debate coaches, and it sounds like he had a bunch of them. Whatever the question was, he would answer it in about 20 seconds and then spend the next minute and 40 seconds redirecting, talking about something he wanted to talk about,
Steve,
ISIS or
yesterday,
taxes
remember
or her husband.
Remember Mike Huckabee yesterday, he said right out of it, I hope first question, I hope he just apologizes and addresses that hot mic issue. Yeah. He started, though, talking about policy and what he wants to do differently. He talked about Obamacare, the Iran deal, trade, stronger borders, law and order. He said, I want to make America great again. Then, after that, that's when he apologized. He said, you know, it was wrong, it was locker room talk, we heard it. Right. Said, I've apologized to my family. It's embarrassing. And then what was telling to me is that they never brought it up again. So it's almost like America has already moved on from this in many ways. I know it was an awful comment. All my women friends, I mean, they're appalled by that. But maybe he can bounce back from this because it was very telling that they never brought it up again later in the debate.
Right. Yeah. Oh, by the way, as long as there's no more tapes. Any more tapes?
But that's all a rumor, right?
Well, this was a rumor before it happened, Ainsley. The other thing is, you know, the stuff that we're seeing about other apprentice tapes, and Mark Burnett saying anyone who releases any apprentice tapes, you owe me $8 million. Yeah. They all signed a contract. David Brock saying, I'll give you millions of dollars if you give us some of these tapes. So if there are no more tapes or Howard Stern hidden shows, I believe this is going to be a fascinating last 29 days. The other thing is, I thought the moment that meant the most was after the debate, when Mike Pence tweeted his full support. Because you know the Indiana newspaper had that story that he was ready to drop out. If he had dropped out, I don't care what happened in the debate, it was over. And he'll be joining us later in the show.
Yeah, the Abe Lincoln comment, too. We haven't talked about that this morning. I know we'll be talking about that for the next 3 hours. That was pretty clever because that was not planned. He didn't know she was going to talk about Abe Lincoln. And he came back with, Abe Lincoln was honest Abe, and you're lying.
Sure. All right, listen, we got 2 honest guys here on the set with us in St. Louis. We got John Roberts and Mike Emanuel. Listen, it was tense with the Trump people over the last couple of days.
I'll tell you. I mean,
how are they reacting?
Worst nightmare come true leading into this debate. You know, I mean, if you want bad information to get out there and really damage a candidate, get it out there a couple of days before a very important debate. And you wonder how this debate would have gone if that had not been an issue, because Donald Trump definitely seemed to be far more, if not prepared, far more ready to use his preparation on the debate stage last night. Didn't really miss many opportunities. Maybe one when Hillary Clinton was talking about energy independence. He could have gone after her to say the reason why is because of the fracking revolution, and you'd like to rein that back in. But I think in the overall, once he got past that horribly messy beginning and all those questions that he needed to come up with an answer for, I thought he did much better here than he did back at Hofstra.
And then on the other side, Hillary Clinton did not have a good night.
She was on the defensive about a lot of things. She had to answer for what her husband said about Obamacare. You know, she had the accusers, her husband's accusers in the audience in her campaign, thinks that was definitely designed to try and rattle her. They said it didn't rattle her. They were ready for that. She told reporters on the flight back to New York that it was about what she expected in terms of the debate. She was asked about the roaming Donald Trump. There was a lot of buzz about that, him on the move, and she said it was a small space. She was aware that he was moving around, but yeah, it was a challenging night, and so I think, you know, her campaign's going to look ahead to the Chris Wallace debate to see if they can turn it around.
You mentioned the buzz. Did they talk about the fact that a fly landed on her head for a little bit?
I saw that picture, but I've not heard any feedback from the campaign on that just yet.
All right,
Like you've never had a fly land on your forehead.
I'm probably we're out in the woods here for 2 days. I'm sure I've got something on there. Ainsley and Brian, you got some questions for John and Mike?
Guys, I thought it was interesting that before the debate, I got all these messages on my phone. Fox News alert, Donald Trump is having some sort of like a press conference, is that what you would call it, with all the ladies that were accusing Bill Clinton. He did that to remind everyone who's watching that the open mic thing is one thing, but these were women. He paid one woman $850,000. Paula Jones, Kathleen Willey was there, Wiley was there, who he allegedly grabbed and groped in the Oval Office. And then Juanita Broaddrick, who accused him of rape, was there. There's the panel right there. And the fourth person is Kathleen Shelton, who was mentioned in the debate. She was raped at 12 years old, and Hillary Clinton represented as a defense attorney the rapist. So they were all sitting in the debate hall watching this debate. And then the camera pans over, there's Bill Clinton, and there's their daughter Chelsea.
Yep.
That had to rattle her if she's up on stage and she sees these women.
Not as much as it would have, Ainsley, if the initial plan had gone through. And the initial plan was to seat those 4 women in the family box on the Trump side of things. But the folks who were in charge of the Commission on Presidential Debate said that's not going to happen, so they went out and they sat there in the audience. But you know, you got to wonder, though, how is this going to play with independent women? Will they look at this and say, oh, you know what, Donald Trump is right, we should hold Hillary Clinton accountable for what her husband did back in the 80s and the 90s, or might they look at this and say he really overplayed his hand here? I think that, you know, to form another cliche, that remains to be seen in the days ahead.
Yeah. Whether or
And I
not
think,
it
to be
will
fair,
work.
there are probably uncomfortable moments for both families, basically. Right. You know, you're sitting there and you're hearing about his video with Billy Bush, and so I'm sure that was uncomfortable for his daughter and for his wife. And then, of course, for former President Clinton, it must have been very uncomfortable to see those women in the room.
Uh-oh. Yeah, what are they doing here?
Yeah.
There was word that the campaign did complain. You can't let them in the front row.
Right.
Oh yeah, they were seated.
Well, they were initially going to try to come up and shake Bill Clinton's hand when he came in.
Whoa! What a photo op.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we pretty much covered it. We'll just change topics for the rest of the show. Okay? Thanks a lot, John and Mike. Thanks so much. All right, guys, stay right there. We come back from St. Louis and New York. Let me tell you what's straight ahead. Donald Trump taking on Hillary Clinton last night over who needs to apologize more, and rattled not only Hillary Clinton but her staffers who took things a little too personally. Wait till you see the tweet making headlines.
Oh, it's bad.
Tucker Carlson weighs in. He has never heard words like this before. He might be rattled.
Even someone like Captain Khan, the young man who sacrificed himself defending our country in the United States Army, has been subject to attack by Donald.
Captain Khan is an American hero. And if I were president at that time, he would be alive today.
Well, in response to that exchange about he would be alive today, a Clinton staff member by the name of Jesse Ladlerich lost his cool and cursed out Donald Trump on Twitter. As you can see, the bottom part, go F yourself. But did Trump do what he needed to rattle Clinton's campaign? Apparently to him. Tucker Carlson joins us live right now here in St. Louis.
Good morning.
You know, if your spokesperson is telling somebody to go do that, you're losing.
That's right.
Just saying.
Especially if your whole case is he has no self-control, we do.
Right.
Right. No, but this isn't, I mean, this is what you've seen from the very beginning. Everyone who runs against Trump goes crazy in the end and loses control and starts babbling and saying things like this because they don't understand why he's not losing. Why is he still in the race? I mean, if you're the Clinton people, you feel like, well, I'm representing the most qualified person ever to breathe air against mentally deficient fascists. So, like, why are we even in the polls? They don't understand that it's not about Trump.
Right.
It's about the frustrations of the American middle class. And because they don't get it, it's inexplicable and crazy-making to them.
And Steve, as you and Tucker, you guys know, Brian Fallon quickly apologized. Said that doesn't represent us, made a mistake. Right. He apologized in the spin room package. You'll see a little bit later. But the other question was, after Donald Trump tried to get past the hot mic moment, which I think he effectively did, the question is, could Hillary get past the email moment, and would Donald Trump be prepared to take her on? I think the answer is yes. Listen.
The thing that you should be apologizing for are the 33,000 emails that you deleted. If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
He's pretty good at sniping.
And at that moment, remember they told Tucker, they told everyone not to clap. The only time you could clap was when the candidates came out, and the crowd went crazy. And Anderson Cooper was like, "Stop yelling." They liked that comment.
It was, look, here's what you need to know. We went into the debate last night with the presumption that Donald Trump should be ashamed. His running mate and his wife, among many others, had issued statements denouncing him. By the end of the debate, the question hung in the air, well, shouldn't Hillary Clinton be ashamed? The point is, and leaving aside the merits of it all, you can decide for yourself, he changed the topic of the debate. Whenever you're in control of what we talk about, you are winning the conversation, period. So his campaign, which was supposed to end last night during the debate, is still going. It's a victory.
He was like going to Vegas. He put all his chips on red because if he did a bad job yesterday, it was going to be.
It was over.
That was it.
It was over. And even his campaign, even people who work for him were saying, yeah, this is it. This is the final stop on the Trump train, unless he can change the conversation. And he did.
What did he do differently in this debate that he didn't do in the first debate?
He dominated it. In the first debate, he took a series of questions and answered them quite literally and got down into the weeds. He took the bait, of course.
Better preparation.
Yes, but also mentally. I mean, leaving aside the details, he just decided, we're going to talk about what I want to talk about. And you win when you do that.
All right. Tucker Carlson, thank you very much. Before you go, say goodbye to Lee, our one fan.
We need goodbye. Lee and I are having a cup of coffee after this.
Lee's got to go to school.
Get ready, Lee.
All right.
If it makes you feel any better, if it makes you feel any better, it's one more than we have.
Yeah. So. Although no one's allowed to get touch us.
Hey, it's early.
All right, thanks, guys. The debate is done, so let the spin begin. We sent Pete Hegseth through the crowd to see what both sides are saying.
Yep, that's our assignment editor, Ainsley.
Good morning and welcome back. It's 24 minutes after the hour. A few quick headlines right now. A massive international terror plot targeting busy airports packed with travelers stopped overnight. After a 3-day manhunt, authorities in Germany arresting the Syrian refugee that they believe is behind that deadly plot. Police raiding his apartment where they found an arsenal of explosives and links to ISIS. Also breaking overnight, the U.S. under attack, possibly again by Iran in international waters. 2 rockets nearly taking out the USS Mason in the Red Sea. Our Navy saying both missiles were fired from rebel-held areas in Yemen but missed their intended targets. Those rebel groups, by the way, backed by Iran, and they now denied carrying out that missile attack. It appears to be the latest form of attempted intimidation by Iran following this embarrassing time when they forced our sailors to their knees before making our men and women apologize. And also, you recall this, when their ships came dangerously close to our American ships. And finally, Matthew marching out to sea, but the storm is still wreaking havoc along the southeast. The death toll rising with at least 18 people dead in the United States as life-threatening flooding remains a major threat here. Hundreds of rescues intensifying for people who are still stranded, like this man you can see being pulled out of a window up to his house, up to the roof. You can even see, well, it's just all water on the ground. Scenes like this are now common. One from Central Florida all the way up through Virginia as Matthew leaves behind a trail of destruction. And those are your headlines. I'll see you back here shortly. Ainsley, unfortunately, those are common images. Thank you so much, Heather. Donald Trump facing tough questions about his hot mic moment right out of the gate. Watch.
You called what you said locker room banter. You described kissing women without consent, grabbing their genitals. That is sexual assault. You bragged that you have sexually assaulted women. Do you understand that?
No, I didn't say that at all. I don't think you understood what was said. This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to my family. I apologize to the American people. Certainly I'm not proud of it, but this is locker room talk.
So how did you think that he handled it? Here to break it down is our political panel, Amy Holmes of Rasmussen Reports, Caitlin Huey-Burns with Real Clear Politics, and Democratic strategist Brian Benjamin. Thank you guys for being with us. How did y'all think that he handled it? Brian, I'll start with you and we'll just go down the line.
Well, I've been in many locker rooms, and that's not locker room talk. Talking about grabbing women's genitals without their consent was the main issue, and I think that he still needs to explain.
All right, what do you think, Kayla?
I think that he didn't quite move on from it. In fact, I think he could have dug himself further with independent voters and women by going after Clinton directly on her husband's infidelities. That's a route that many Republicans didn't want him to go down, wanted him to move and focus on issues.
Amy, what do you think?
I thought he didn't put it behind him, but he did effectively set it to the side. And as I was watching, a friend of mine texted, she said, "It feels like I'm watching two angry parents arguing through a divorce. Right. This is so uncomfortable." And meanwhile, they didn't love each other in the first place.
I know, they didn't shake hands.
So, no. So, for me, I felt like it was a draw between the two candidates because at the end, you just wanted to take a shower.
Well, at the end, they did shake hands, and they did answer the question that we'll show later in the show.
Absolutely.
That guy asked, like, can you say something positive about each other? So I thought that was had a little bow on
It was almost shocking.
Well done by both of them.
They talked about, let's talk about some of the issues. They talked about foreign policy, they talked about the economy, they talked about health care. We're going to show you some sound bites of all of those topics, and then we'll discuss them one by one. Take a listen.
We're going to make sure that nobody, no corporation and no individual can get away without paying his fair share.
We're bringing the tax rate down from 35% to 15%. We're cutting taxes for the middle class.
Premiums have gotten too high, co-pays, deductibles, prescription drug costs, and I've laid out a series of actions that we can take to try to get those costs down.
It is a disastrous plan, and it has to be repealed and replaced.
We are not at war with Islam, and it is a mistake, and it plays into the hands of the terrorists to act as though we are.
I will knock the hell out of ISIS. We're going to defeat ISIS.
All right, Amy, I'll start on your end. What did you think, first of all, of foreign policy?
I thought there wasn't enough of it, and we didn't get deep enough into it. So, for example, both candidates say that they support a safe zone in Syria. Well, what that means is more deeper military intervention when it comes to the United States, because if a Russian plane flies over and bombs citizens in Syria, who's going to be shooting them down? The United States. So I felt that it was a little shallow, but unfortunately, a lot of this campaign has been shallow, and part of it is, I think, the media not asking really probing questions when it comes to foreign policy.
So who won on foreign policy?
I prefer the more conservative approach, of course, but I wanted to hear more.
Okay, Caitlin?
I thought a really interesting moment was when Donald Trump diverged from his own running mate when it came to approaching ISIS and the relationship with Russia and involvement in tackling Syria. I thought that was a really key moment of the campaign, saying that they haven't spoken about that policy and he disagrees with him. And he was read a statement by Mike Pence. So for that reason, I think Clinton won that segment.
And I had to wonder, does Mike Pence know that Trump disagrees with him?
Apparently he does, because he was tweeting last night that he's going back on the trail, that he was proud of the top of the ticket. So those rumors that they're breaking up.
All right, economy. Who won on the economy and why?
On the economy, I think Hillary won. I just think that Trump never gives really good explanations, and he acts as if the president is a dictator, which the president is not. And so whenever I hear his comments, I'm saying to myself, the guy asked him a question: how is it that you're going to make it more fair for the lower income people and middle income people? His argument is to say, let's cut taxes from 35% to 15% for everybody. That helps the upper class. So he doesn't answer questions.
Amy, Hillary said she wants to increase taxes for anyone making $200,000 or more. Is that the best plan to tax the rich?
Well, if you were to ask Chuck Schumer, no, because when we looked at tax reform under George Bush, Chuck Schumer was one who say, well, in New York City, $200,000 a year, while it is a lot for most Americans, is not a lot for New York City residents. But getting back to your point, when it came to answering questions about the economy, again, I just felt like the questions were very shallow and that we moved on too quickly so that we couldn't really learn more about what these two candidates want to do as commander-in-chief.
Thank you guys so much. I did think it was interesting on healthcare. Hillary Clinton said that she said, quote, if we could start over, maybe we could have come up with a better plan, talking about Obamacare. All right, thank you all for being with us.
Thank you, Ainsley.
So who was the biggest star of the night? This guy right there. What did he do? What did he say that is taking the internet by storm? And the debate is done. So what did both sides think? We sent Pete Hegseth into the spin room after the debate. He is live with Steve there on the stage in St. Louis.
She campaigned where the
Mr. Trump, I want to get to audience questions and online questions.
So she's allowed to do that, but I'm not allowed to respond.
You're going to get to respond right now.
Sounds fair.
Well, we turned over 35,000, so
yeah.
it was.
What about the other 15,000?
Please allow her to respond. She didn't talk while you talked.
Well, Hillary Clinton wants to allow.
And why did it morph into that? No, answer the question.
Why don't you
still believe
her? You
I do.
Me all the time. Why don't you
Would
interrupt
you
her?
please?
Going to be able to. You're going to have plans.
What does that mean?
Well, I'll tell you what it means. Well, I just want
There's
to
been lots
say,
of fact checking on that. I'd like to move on to an online question.
She just went about 25 seconds over her time. Could I just respond to this, please? I'd like to know, Anderson, why aren't you bringing up the emails? I'd like to know. Why aren't you
We brought up the emails.
No, it hasn't.
Kim Karpowitz has a question.
It's nice to 1-on-3.
He turned his back and had to walk away at one moment, doing that, that walk around in circles just to calm himself down.
Although that, in that situation, I know the numbers are overwhelming in terms of interruptions. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I thought they were both very good and very fair, Anderson Cooper and Martha Raddatz. I thought they made this thing substantive when it easily could have been a cartoon. And they made them talk about the economy, made them talk about emails, made them talk about what's happening in Aleppo, Syria, Iraq, and we didn't get caught up in the Sean Hannity. I said this to Sean Hannity, and I said this to somebody else. Right. So I thought they were very strong.
Here's what I thought was interesting. How many people were on the stage who were going to ask questions? A couple dozen? Mm-hmm. How many actually did? I mean, it was a town hall. It was supposed to be the opportunity for regular people to ask questions. I think by the end of the first hour, 3 people had asked little questions. And Martha Raddatz, who, remember, the President of the United States, Barack Obama, went to her wedding, and Anderson Cooper asked their questions. And they did interrupt overwhelmingly Donald Trump and not Hillary Clinton. We've got a graphic. The moderators interrupted Trump at least 13 times, Hillary Clinton at least twice. That according to our brain room, but I think it was much higher than that. It just, you know what, I can't tell you how many times we were watching and you heard Donald Trump answering the question and then he was interrupted by one of the moderators asking a follow-up while he was still answering, which that's not.
Steve, I did think at one point, I did notice all the interruptions, but then about 3/4 of the way through, I felt like they were talking about, I can't even remember what the topic was, but they were talking about something where I felt like he was about to get rattled. And then Martha interrupted him and they changed topics. And I thought she might have just saved him from making a mistake.
And Martha Raddatz has been extremely critical of Barack Obama's foreign policy because she goes over there into the war zone so often and she hears what people saying about us and how everything's certainly changed. I think it's now time to bring in a guy, I think, to your immediate left. Pete Hegseth working the spin room last night. Steve, is this true?
He was. I went to a focus group that we're going to see in a little while, and Pete went to the spin room where the spin starts here.
It starts and it keeps going. You gave me some tips on what to do to plow my way through the spin room, but we were in there. It was intense. The gloves had been off inside, and it was clear that both camps wanted to hit the floor with their narrative, and this is what both sides had to say.
We're here in the spin room right after the debate just ended. They shook hands at the end of the debate, certainly didn't shake hands at the beginning, and there was a lot of feistiness in between. We're going to see who we can get from the Clinton and Trump camps to get reaction to this, well, gloves off debate. How do you feel?
I feel great. I thought that he was clear, he was concise, and he was thorough, and he didn't let anything slide at all.
For fans of Prime Minister's questions, how did tonight compare?
Oh, this was epic theatre. I mean, it really was. Even if the first quarter of an hour at times was a little bit excruciating.
The biggest takeaway tonight is that Donald Trump showed he's ready to be president and commander-in-chief on day one. He took the case right to Hillary Clinton, and he showed that she's easily rattled, which is not a great quality for a president or a commander-in-chief.
Does this turn the page for you guys?
It does, and it has been a tough week. But resilience is a quality for presidents also. You have to be resilient and nimble. You don't know what's going to come your way when you're president of the United States, certainly as commander in chief.
Follow us. It's a little crowded in here today.
Donald Trump came in with his stunt at the beginning and
what stunt?
tried to his Facebook town hall, trying to kind of throw her off. He didn't do that. She came in with one clear mission, which was talk to those voters who were asking questions.
I think he tried to rattle her with a desperate, cheap tactic before the debate began, but it didn't work.
I don't think he did anything to help reassure those people that were troubled by the audio that surfaced on Friday. And then I think that some of these other steps that he took in the debate clearly backfired on him, showed his own lack of temperament, essentially made our argument for us about his lack of fitness to be president.
How do you feel like Mr. Trump handled the woman issue?
He apologized, and he said that he was ashamed about what he did, and that's much more than what Bill Clinton has ever done to any of us women and us victims.
How did I feel about that?
Watching Bill Clinton absorb what Donald Trump was saying.
I was hoping that he was listening, but I don't think he has. From the looks of him, he looks like the ghosts of his past are really catching up with him.
Miss Kennedy happens to be spinning, and she dropped her pen, her golden pen. It's why it's the secret, actually, to your power. People want to know, what does Tucker Carlson think?
Well, you sort of went into this thinking, Trump has a lot to be ashamed about. His wife, his running mate, both attacked him. And you left the debate thinking, Hillary Clinton has a lot to be ashamed about. He dominated the terms of the debate, the conversation.
We are here with the great Monica Crowley. Monica, what's the takeaway tonight?
I think Donald Trump just reset the campaign tonight. There's a saying, don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. Well, I think we saw a miracle coming from Donald Trump tonight.
It was an interesting evening. My first impression was the Trump supporters were eager and enthusiastic and ready to talk, and the Clinton supporters had mixed messages.
Could not get out of there fast
Yeah, they
enough.
didn't want to talk at all. It wasn't just the Fox News flag. It was the reality that, hey, we're not quite sure what this is going to look like. We were on defensive all night.
Sure.
Well, Brian and I were wondering, when you walked into that spin room, did you go, I am entering the spin room?
That's exactly what I did with every interview.
You're right. I love it when people fill in for Bill O'Reilly and they have to do it.
Right.
It's really funny.
It's never the same.
I know, right?
Never the same. But just real quick, on the Hillary Clinton front, do you think her approach was, don't drop the ball, I don't need a win, all I need is to stay steady, because she feels she's won this thing already, play it safe? Do you think that could have been the reason?
Yeah, I think she was trying to play it safe and play policy, and instead he went on the offensive and went with his gut, and that gut resonates. Benghazi, the emails, a lot of the issues that American people have been frustrated about, where they feel like there's a double standard. He spoke to it, and he spoke to it pretty powerfully, and she was rattled. There was no doubt, and even Clinton folks realized Trump set the agenda that night.
All right, Pete, thanks for going.
Thanks for sending me, guys.
You're still spinning?
Spinning. I'm always spinning.
See you later.
Whatever that means.
All right, we'll see you in a little while.
All right, still ahead, Hillary Clinton tries to use Abraham Lincoln to explain her latest WikiLeaks bombshell, but Donald Trump, he didn't buy it.
Would either of you name one positive thing that you respect in one another?
Well, there was that soundbite too. We're going to talk about both of those soundbites. Reaction online, it's just priceless.
Right, I think I'm going to use Clayton Morris for that. Clayton, is this true?
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. Coffee, nice to see you.
Right. All right, for a change, Donald Trump dominating the Twitter conversation last night. The Republican nominee taking 64% share of the hashtag debate talk compared to Hillary Clinton's hashtag 36%.
It's amazing you can tell that. Clayton Morris is the expert on this. He's the one looking at social media. What'd you see?
Oh, my gosh. Twitter last night was just fantastic to watch. A lot of people slam Twitter. It's the best news source during the debate to watch.
Donald Trump had to further define, because they want to mock him because he tweets. Right. Because, guys, do you know that Twitter's important, that we're using that today? Right. I thought he really minimized it Clayton Morris style, said get with it.
Get right out there. And, of course, he went right after Hillary Clinton on Twitter right after the debate on her Abe Lincoln comments. Of course, she didn't clarify it well enough. I think she really fumbled the football there when she was trying to say this about Abe Lincoln. Listen.
Would either of you name one positive thing that you respect in one another?
Mr. Trump, would you like to go first?
Yeah.
So that's the wrong soundbite.
Right, but it was good to hear that one.
Right, it was good to hear. So
Right, I thought it was a great way to end.
When Donald Trump came out after her saying, look, Honest Abe, this is the moment when she was trying to defend her WikiLeaks transcripts from
saying she has
speaking
public opinion in one place,
exactly.
private opinion in the other. She said, I saw the Lincoln
movie, and that was what I was responding to. She really fumbled that. Of course, he came out and tweeted immediately, to your point, after the debate. He said this history lesson, there's a big difference between Hillary Clinton and Abraham Lincoln. For one, his nickname is Honest Abe, hashtag rattled Hillary. Then Mary McCormick tweeted this, Gary Johnson is currently Googling Lincoln right now. Hashtag debates, looking up Lincoln. Mary McKay Coppin says, as every debate coach will tell you, when the moderators ask you an uncomfortable question, pivot to the Lincoln movie.
Right.
It's always a good diversion.
Right. Actually, it was just 2 short weeks ago when Clayton came on to talk about tweets, and I read them all. Right. And you're still a little bitter about that. I apologize.
I love that moment. I sat down, and Brian read all of the... I was like, what am I hearing?
Yeah.
And then I would just know there's a fly.
There's a fly somewhere in the room.
Did you watch that last night? So my wife, we were watching, she says, is there a fly in our house? Is that on the screen, or is that actually in the studio in St. Louis landing on Hillary Clinton's face, which it did? So this fly, it actually got its own Twitter account immediately. President Fly on Twitter immediately rolled out their Twitter account, said, yo, just broke past security and landed on Hillary's face. Hi, Mom, hashtag debate. But President Fly spelled Hillary's name wrong. There's 2 L's.
Oh, President Fly.
Now, I have to say one of my favorite moments from last night's debate was Ken Bone. All right, now Ken Bone, he got up and he asked a really thoughtful question about energy policy. We haven't really had much of a talk about energy policy.
Right, we do in the breaks, but not, we want to
Right, I know
debate.
you do. You don't even watch TV because you're spending too much time reading.
Right, exactly.
So here's Ken Bone. Look at him. He's like the most adorable man ever. He asked this really thoughtful question about energy policy, and then all of these Twitter accounts started exploding because they thought he was just like the sweetest man. Ken Bone parody Twitter account rolls out, I'm not the hero you want, I'm the hero you need.
What did Jeff say?
Jeff tweeted this, tonight I lost hope in America's future, and then I met Ken Bone. And then people are switching out Ken Bone with President Obama on the Hope poster. There he is, Ken Bone. And then Eric tweeted this, bad to the Ken Bone hashtag.
I love that one.
Debate.
Right.
It was
bad to the Ken Bone.
Yeah, people thought, somebody else said something about, he's the kind of guy that you think that brings home flowers to his wife every day just because.
He's Ken
like
Bone.
the nice guy, nicest guy in the world. He has a little sweater on.
I'm
and
glad
white.
you think he's adorable.
I thought he was. I thought it was real sweet. Anyway, there's your social media recount for tonight.
Thanks, Clayton.
Oh, we were supposed to hold our pause to the end. My fault. That was my fault. Big show still to come. VP nominee Mike Pence will be here live. Frank Luntz will be here live. Herman Cain will be here live. Karl Rove will be here live.
But first, how did the voters rate the St. Louis slugfest? Lee Carter is in before those people, right there with Steve. She has the dials.
She's here already.
Wasn't she?
She's there already.
I'm not sure. Plenty of fireworks at the town hall last night. Joining us right now is Lee Carter. She's a partner at Ms. Lansky and Partners, and she just put last night's big debate sound bites to the dial test. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right, 3 up. First up, something everybody's talking about. Wait a minute, did she just blame Abe Lincoln for something? Watch this.
And she lied. Now she's blaming the lie on the late, great Abraham Lincoln. That's one that I haven't... Okay, Honest Abe. Honest Abe never lied. That's the good thing. That's the big difference between Abraham Lincoln and you. That's a big, big difference. We're talking about some difference.
How did your dialers rate that?
Well, you can see Republicans were nearly off the charts, as were independents. They loved this moment. They both gave it an A. Democrats, not surprisingly, gave it an F. But the bottom line here is that this was one of the moments, this was the line of the night, because he really seemed comfortable. He was spontaneous. He was authentic. He was on his game last night, and voters really responded to him.
Okay, you're right. I thought that was the line of the night. But earlier, I thought this was the line of the night.
You know, it's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
It's still amazing.
Isn't it just unbelievable? So you can see there, independents and Republicans, as soon as Donald Trump flipped that around, they went off the charts, gave him an A. Democrats gave Hillary Clinton a B there. The bottom line is this. She was going after the temperament. He was going after crooked liar. The crooked liar thing is really it's sticking a lot more than the temperament right now.
Of course, we don't know yet how many people watched, but a lot of people were tuning in to see him talk about the hot mic thing with Billy Bush on that bus. Here's some of that. Watch this.
I don't think you understood what was said. This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to my family. I apologize to the American people. Certainly I'm not proud of it. But this is locker room talk. You know, when we have a world where you have ISIS chopping off heads, where you have, and frankly, drowning people in steel cages, where you have wars and horrible, horrible sights all over, where you have so many bad things happening, this is like medieval times.
So you can see there, Republicans and Independents gave this, well, an A and a B respectively, Democrats an F. But the bottom line is this. He was able to deflect the comments enough to say, look, there are real issues here. People are concerned about national security. Let's talk about that, not these comments. And he was able to get that conversation shifted, and that was his job last night.
He had a good night?
He did.
Lee, thank you very much.
Great to be here.
We have a great morning. Still lots more show to go. We've got Mike Pence, Frank Luntz, Herman Cain, Karl Rove, live from New York and St. Louis, the site of last night's big town hall. Live from Washington University in the heart of St. Louis, it's Fox and Friends, and I guess we're playing Beat It because everybody beat it out of town last night. It's just me and my co-host Lee, who is going to be going in about an hour to school, but he is our only fan this morning, live from Washington University after a there he is right there, after a barn burner of a debate. Lee, did you like the show last night? Did you like the town hall? Yeah, it was really great. Okay, he said, yeah, it was really great. All right.
A lot of other people.
It's my focus group of one.
A lot of people are saluting the great explorer Columbus for discovering America. So everyone, Lee rather be with Ducey. Others want to salute Columbus. I was Columbus for Halloween. No pictures available.
I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean Columbus Day?
It's Columbus Day.
Got it.
You
Steve,
there you go.
The big debate last night.
Yes.
Everyone was wondering if Donald Trump could bounce back from those comments, the hot mic. Last night, the consensus was he did well.
Let's listen.
This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to my family. I apologize to the American people. Certainly I'm not proud of it. But this is locker room talk.
Like everyone else, I've spent a lot of time thinking over the last 48 hours about what we heard and saw. You know, with prior Republican nominees for president, I disagreed with them on politics, policies, principles, but I never questioned their fitness to serve. Donald Trump is different. I said starting back in June that he was not fit to be president and commander-in-chief.
If you look at Bill Clinton, far worse, minor words, and his was action. His was what he's done to women. There's never been anybody in the history of politics in this nation that's been so abusive to women. So you can say any way you want to say it, but Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women and attacked them viciously. 4 of them here tonight. And I will tell you that when Hillary brings up a point like that and she talks about words that I said 11 years ago, I think it's disgraceful, and I think she should be ashamed of herself, if you want to know the truth.
Can we please hold the applause?
And he did get a lot of applause. And Steve, overall, I was pretty amazed at certain things. There's no doubt about it. The most pressure on any politician in the world was Donald Trump. After that tape came out on Friday, seeing about 26 Republicans, major congressional leaders, Republicans say, I cannot support him. I'm not voting for him, some of which had already said they weren't supporting him. But just to make it clear, wondering if his vice presidential nominee was going to jump ship, he came out there like he didn't have a care in the world. He was calm. He was very even. If this was his first debate performance after he had closed the gap, I mean, he might be up 5 points if there were no tape submissions.
Yeah, exactly. People were wondering if that would do the job, and we asked you what you thought. So what did you think? And John on Twitter said, yes, he did a great job of apologizing, then switching to something substantive.
Susie on Twitter said, absolutely, it was blown into much more than what it actually was, embarrassing and not defendable, but words, not actions.
Mike Emanuel and John Roberts wouldn't tweet, but they'd show up in person. They want to come in directly. They couldn't be held to 140 characters or left. Steve, you've met them, right?
There are a couple of characters. All right, in a single word, what was the strategy for Hillary going in?
Safe.
What was the strategy for Donald Trump?
Mutually assured destruction. I don't know. That's not one word. But, I mean, he definitely.
He was there to burn down the building.
He was there to burn down the building, and he did it. You know, and he went after her in ways that he never did at Hofstra University. Reince Priebus thought on the issue of the tape that he did what he needed to do to, at the very least, stem the bleeding, stop the defections. But now Donald Trump's going to find himself on offense and fighting a war on two fronts, against Hillary Clinton and against what he believes are turncoat Republicans who abandoned him in his hour of need, and he's going to go after them as well.
Well, those Republicans didn't like him anyway. Mike, I feel bad. You've only said one word so far. Was the Hillary Clinton...
I followed instructions. One word.
I gave it.
Stop it. I'm such a rebel.
So the Hillary Clinton campaign, was it, from your sources, was it a quiet ride back in the jet last night?
Well, you know, she made a point to come back and talk to reporters, which is unusual. She's been doing it a little more recently, but she said, you know, it was about what I expected and that sort of thing. You know, there was all this buildup to what she would say about this tape, the videotape that was out there all weekend, and they were having a good time letting the Republicans fight over it. And, you know, yeah, exactly. And so we were waiting and waiting, and then, I don't know about you guys, but it felt a little bit like we were at a car accident where you're like, did he really just say that?
He said it.
I put you in jail, and did he really bring up all the women from the 90s with Bill Clinton? And so it was quite a night.
And he brought something else up, didn't he, Ainsley?
Yeah, and Mike, you just mentioned the jail comment. That was in response to the emails, the 33,000 emails. Listen to the conversation at the debate last night about her email scandal. The crowd really liked that. So, John, that was one of the two moments that were not scripted that he couldn't have prepared for. So he said that, and then also the Abe Lincoln comment that we'll talk about a little bit later. But the crowd loved it.
Yeah, and then of course,
go ahead. Certainly his supporters did, and I was just going to say that he did prepare for that. He might not have actually prepared that actual remark, but in a big, you know, series of question and answer sessions with Rudy Giuliani and with New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, they were firing questions at him, trying to provoke quick responses. So what they did was they basically conditioned him to be able to respond to something like that. So even if it wasn't a practiced line, it was a conditioned response.
Yeah, evidently Hillary Clinton on her plane on the way back was kind of talkative and did feel pretty good about her performance. And if her objective was just not to make a big mistake or look defensive like she did with Matt Lauer, you know, one thing I thought, Matt Lauer got vindicated because you saw that Matt Lauer was just asking follow-up questions. She got a couple of follow-up questions on taxes, and she was basically taxes and her emails. She was dumbfounded. She had no answer for her own actions. And the one thing that we are debating now is WikiLeaks. We're getting hacked on a regular basis from the State Department to the Defense Department to the White House, and now they evidently hacked into Hillary Clinton's. Somehow they're getting hold of Hillary Clinton's emails through WikiLeaks and the inner workings of the Clinton campaign. And one thing came out is how Hillary Clinton says, I have to have one position for those people on the inside and another position for the public. That was brought up to her, and here's how she tried to explain it.
Right. As I recall, that was something I said about Abraham Lincoln after having seen the wonderful Steven Spielberg movie called Lincoln. It was a master class watching President Lincoln get the Congress to approve the 13th Amendment. It was principled and it was strategic.
Well, I think I should respond because it's so ridiculous. Look, now she's blaming, she got caught in a total lie. Her papers went out to all her friends at the banks, Goldman Sachs and everybody else, and she said things, WikiLeaks, that just came out. And she lied. Now she's blaming the lie on the late, great Abraham Lincoln. That's one that I haven't. Okay, Honest Abe. Honest Abe never lied. That's the good thing. That's the big difference between Abraham Lincoln and you.
Oh, man. Wow. Now, Mike, you're going to be going down to Florida with Mrs. Clinton tomorrow?
That's right. She's got an event tomorrow. Today she's in the Rust Belt. She's doing some voter registration events, so we'll get a good sense of how she's feeling post-debate. I thought it was unusual after all the talk at the debate that she did come back and talk to reporters on the plane. Maybe she wanted to leave them with another impression other than what was said on stage.
Speaking of the reporters, what'd you think of the moderators? Because someone said there was a lot of interrupting him, not so much her.
Yeah, there was a lot of interrupting. They were a little, as Chris Starwald said, interrupty of the vice presidential debate of Tim Kaine. But I have tremendous respect for Martha Raddatz. I've known her for years and years. She seemed a little argumentative at a couple of points where, she explained to him why sometimes you want to telegraph that you're about to attack, and then when she came back and said, well, what's the policy?
I think Mike Emanuel looks a little argumentative here.
Well, I would just say that I think the Clinton campaign actually did an effective job before the debates of working the referees. Saying you better fact check him on the spot, otherwise you're not doing your job.
And they've been doing that for weeks, too.
So they
set that up at the Intrepid.
Lester Holt was in a bad spot the first debate, and then last night they were, basically called out. If you're not going to fact check them, then you're not doing
Whatever happened to just asking questions and letting people answer it? Like the old days.
I mean, the moderator is supposed to ask the questions, hold them to time, make sure that there is follow-up discussion, and just not necessarily fact check.
Okay. All right. The facts.
Mr. Roberts,
let's just, as you guys say goodbye, let's just brag a little bit. Coming up at about 1 hour and 15 minutes, Governor Mike Pence. The big story before this debate was Governor Mike Pence, according to a local newspaper, was thinking about dropping off the ticket. He said that wasn't true. I cannot wait to see him expand on that story. All right. Steve Ducey nods affirmatively. Enough said. Coming up straight ahead, let the mudslinging begin. The gloves are coming off and the insults are flying. Not on the couch. Former Republican presidential candidate Herman Cain live with us to talk about who came out the cleanest. That'll be straight ahead.
And breaking overnight, it's happened once again. One of our naval ships under attack by Iran-linked forces. How are militaries responding this morning?
Are we going to respond this time?
Teachers and parents are calling it the Trump effect. Bullying is up.
Bernie Sanders, I was so surprised to see him sign on with the devil.
Everything he just said is absolutely false.
She has tremendous hate in her heart.
When they go low, you go high.
She's got bad judgment, and honestly, so bad that she should never be president of the United States.
He never apologizes for anything to anyone.
Honestly, I've never lied. That's the good thing. That's the big difference between Abraham Lincoln and you.
Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton taking direct aim at each other. I don't know if you got that idea. As the gloves came off, and they had to, who came out cleaner, who came out better? Here to react, Fox News contributor, 2012 GOP presidential nominee, Herman Cain. Herman, Donald Trump had to step up big time last night in a format he's never quite done like that, especially with two moderators. How do you grade him?
I would grade him as having done an excellent job, because when you have real questions from real people, you get real answers. That's what Donald Trump delivered last night. Hillary only had political answers. And you know what, Brian, to use your boxing analogy, I don't think Hillary ever got the gloves on. She was on the defensive all night because she has no substance to talk about. So their whole strategy is attack, attack, attack. But when you have real people asking real questions, you get to hear the substance that Donald Trump represents.
When that tape came out on Friday, I was stunned by how many Republicans jumped off the Trump train, probably for good, from Senator Thune, obviously to Senator McCain. Some speculate maybe later today, Paul Ryan. But David Axelrod, of all people, I think got the sentiment that should be possibly ringing through the GOP. He said the real Donald Trump tape was appalling, but it wasn't at all surprising. The shocked GOP politicos scrambling for cover looks ludicrous. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think that the Donald Trump supporters understand the difference between somebody that says awful things. You can't defend what he said. He said some awful things. He said some things that the liberals have tried to present as awful. But saying awful things is different from someone doing awful things where people died and people lied and people took the fifth. So that, I think, is the difference that a lot of people are starting to understand. The American people are not stupid. They see that difference. There's an old saying for some people, Brian, They don't want to vote for the lesser of two evils. I've heard that many times on my radio show, and you probably heard it too. But my pastor pointed out, don't commit the third evil and not vote. These are the choices that we have. You want someone who has said awful things, or do you want someone who has done awful things? That's what this race comes down to, and it came out last night because Donald Trump has more substance than Hillary Clinton by a long shot.
And man, I bet you when the ratings come in, there's going to be over 100 million people who had watched, so probably many of which had not made up their minds, and maybe they have now, but as long as they show up. Hermie Cain, always great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian.
And you should check out Hermie Cain's radio show. It's excellent. Meanwhile, straight ahead, the target audience last night, undecided voters.
Good morning and welcome back to Fox and Friends. A few quick headlines to bring you right now. Breaking overnight, the U.S. under attack, possibly yet again, by Iran in international waters. 2 rockets nearly taking out the USS Mason in the Red Sea. The Navy saying that both missiles were fired from rebel-held areas in Yemen, but missed their intended targets. Those rebel groups are backed by Iran and denied carrying out a missile attack. This may be the latest attempt to intimidate the United States by Iran, following this embarrassing incident in January when they forced our sailors to their knees before making them apologize. And then you'll recall this one. Their ships recently came dangerously close to our American ships. Matthew now marching out to sea, but the storm still wreaking havoc along the southeast. The death toll rising, with at least 18 people killed in the United States, as life-threatening flooding remains a major threat here. Hundreds of rescues intensifying for people who are still stranded, like these men seen being pulled off the roof of their car, which is almost completely covered in water. Take a look at that. And then scenes like this one are now increasingly common from Central Florida to Virginia as Matthew leaves behind a trail of destruction. Those are your headlines. I'll see you back here shortly. Angie?
Thank you, Heather. Donald Trump begins last night's debate with an apology, trying to set the record straight when it comes to his treatment of women.
So for the record, you're saying you never did that?
Things that, frankly, you hear these things are said, and I was embarrassed by it. But I have tremendous respect for women.
Have you ever done those things?
Have respect for me. And I will tell you, no, I have not.
But did Donald Trump do enough to win over the female vote? Here to weigh in on this is Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce. Hey, Tammy.
Hey, good morning.
What'd you think? Did he redeem himself?
I think he did as much as he could, and I was impressed. In the first apology, he also said that this campaign was making him a better man. And as a feminist, somebody who's been a working feminist for decades now, that's what we ask of men. We know we're all imperfect. Every day we're each working to become better people. The fact that he noted that is important. I also think, though, that women's issues are everyone's issues, right? Certainly there are certain dynamic issues that we're concerned about, like health care, et cetera, and education. Men are concerned about those things as well, but we're also concerned about national security and the economy. Are we going to be able to protect our family? Will our children be able to have a better life than we have? Those become the issues. So when he pivoted out and stuck with the issues, that mattered. It reminded women what was at stake as well.
Yeah, he started with the issues, then apologized, then the debate seemed to move on, which I thought was telling, because they didn't ever go back to the hot mic issue.
Yeah, look, that first 5 minutes was tense because they were both feeling each other out. They were seeing where they were willing to go. And Mr. Trump's gambit of bringing in Bill Clinton's alleged victims also sent a message that we'll go there if we have to. But interestingly, Hillary Clinton and her team, I think, decided, well, and this is a mistake, we're ahead, let's not do any damage, we're going to not really engage here and just kind of skate through. They've underestimated Mr. Trump from the beginning, and I think that was an underestimation. Now, he won't get a majority of women, but I think that he's always actually been doing better than people expected, specifically because of what the issues are.
You know what I noticed, too, symbolically speaking, she walked out on stage, you could cut the coldness with a knife between those two. They did not shake hands.
Yes.
Because she almost was representing the woman voter there by saying, I don't approve of what you said about women. And then at the end of the debate, they shook hands. Like, all right, I'm going to put this all behind us.
Well, I think that was important because ultimately it didn't work. He survived. This is the thing about debates that's interesting. Even less than the details of what's said, people wanted to see, with this really Armageddon that happened in the last 48 hours, would he not only still be standing, he was, but he also prevailed. And that's a signal about leadership. And that's also where she failed, is that they threw everything on the kitchen sink at him. There will likely be more. But Americans at this point, I would have to say, don't care, because what's at stake, I think, is even more serious.
If that were the last debate, if we were going to the polls today, who would win?
I think ultimately when people walk in and they realize what we've got, more terrorist attacks, the immigration issue, the economy, people will check for Mr. Trump. The independents went overwhelmingly for him last night, and that's what we're looking at. We've got both parties are set, I think. It's all baked in. The independents have responded very strongly to him, and there's a reason for that. There are existential issues we're all dealing with here.
Tammy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The target audience last night, undecided voters.
Raise your hands if you walked in here leaning towards Hillary Clinton. Raise your hands. Okay, there's 8 or 9 of you. Raise your hands if you walked in here leaning towards Donald Trump. Once again, 8 or 9 of you.
But one candidate really swayed them. Results of our focus group done minutes after the debate with Frank Luntz, and that is next. And the video is terrifying. A boat filled with people goes under.
Get some more vests over there, guys. All right, come on.
There are women and children in that water. They were forced to tread water. The rescue caught on camera.
Would either of you name one positive thing that you respect in one another?
I respect his children. His children are incredibly able and devoted, and I think that says a lot about Donald.
She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that. I tell it like it is. She's a fighter.
Yeah, well, I didn't know if Donald Trump was going to say anything at first because he deferred to her to speak first, and then she decided, what about him? I like the fact that he has 3 offspring that aren't like him. That's essentially what she was saying.
Steve, it tied a nice little bow on the end of a heated debate.
Yeah.
I liked the question.
Well, his answer was great.
And his answer was short. He didn't go the whole 2 minutes. You know, it's really interesting. Pete Hegseth went into the spin room. The spin starts here. But I wanted to see how Frank Luntz did a focus group because of all of the debates. I mean, this was do or die for Donald Trump. And I watched how methodically Frank went through everybody's background to make sure that they knew exactly who was in the room. The people who leaned toward Hillary, leaned toward Trump, and the independents as well. And, so I watched them watch the entire debate where he said she should be in jail, talked about her husband being essentially a sexual predator, and about the email. And at the end of the 100 minutes, Frank Luntz essentially said he's never seen such a turnaround where people went in with their heads going one way and came out changed. Watch this. Here's Frank.
Every once in a while there is a debate that has a significant impact, either in the narration of the election or the actual vote itself. And I think this is one of them. Raise your hands. We're here in St. Louis. Raise your hands if you walked in here leaning towards Hillary Clinton. Raise your hands. Okay, there's 8 or 9 of you. Raise your hands if you walked in here leaning towards Donald Trump. Once again, 8 or 9 of you. Tell me, tonight, who was the most impactful candidate? Who says Clinton? Who says Trump? Wow. Explain to me, why Trump?
I mean, there's emails, which is national security, and then there's somebody's potty mouth. And I'm more concerned about the issues about our security than I am about what somebody says that's inappropriate.
Yeah, the integrity, how we can deliver a message, telling the people what they really want to hear and not just BS.
He's into the issues, and he's telling us what we really need to know, I think.
I think he's a businessman, and people do not understand a lot of times that you need businesses incentives to come to this country, so I've never gotten a job from a poor person in my life.
I still feel he skirted the issues. He is still,
not answering questions directly, but I did feel he was more civil in some ways. His tone was less, was more polite in a sense.
I'm a teacher, and he sounded like a kid who had remembered 3 things from class and was trying to make his way through the discussion by bringing everything back there. I want someone who's well prepared and has done the reading, because then they can contribute to the discussion.
So what would you grade him as a teacher?
As a teacher? Well, I mean, presentation, he's a showman, so maybe he gets 10% of the grade there, but I'd probably give him about a C.
Yeah, you're a tough grader.
I am.
Thank God he didn't have you. Did America win tonight or lose tonight based on what you saw? Who thought America won? Raise your hands. So most of you. Second row, why'd you think America won tonight?
Well, I think we finally got closest to hearing what Trump actually believes on some issues. The moderators, I thought, did a good job of pressing him and getting some actual information out of him.
I agree. We found out more how he wants to attack about taxes, education, and energy and everything we need to know about the country.
Go ahead.
I disagree. I felt like he attacked Hillary most of the time and didn't give us any clear answers on what his plan is.
Nick, I got to ask you.
Yes.
You were born where?
I was born in Mexico, and one of the things that moved me still toward Trump, even though most of my people don't, is the fact that the talk has been happening since 1988, and none of my people have gotten that amnesty that everyone talks about.
So what is it about the Latino population that almost 80% are supporting Hillary Clinton?
Well, it's just the talk. Again, she's promising the same thing that everyone has promised, and nothing happens. Trump talks about a wall and stuff like that, but, Congress is ultimately the one that has the word to say.
So let me ask you as a way to close this. Are there anyone here who at this point will not vote for president, that you don't like either candidate? There are a few of you. What is it? What's the problem? Daniel.
I just feel like if we're going to vote for a candidate, if we're going to vote for someone who represents America, we have much better choices. Trump is not a conservative. I'm conservative. I want a conservative president. I want conservative policies. He gets elected, we're not getting a conservative for a while.
Michael, you're still none of the above. Tell me why.
It's funny. I'm kind of a bleeding heart conservative, and I'm not really sure if I found what I'm looking for yet.
This debate was, to me, fascinating because Donald Trump started off so strong, just as he did in the first debate. But he didn't weaken. And there were moments in here where they all thought that he was really outperforming Hillary Clinton. Did it change any minds? Raise your hands if you're walking out of here a Trump voter. Yes, it did. Back to you.
And you really couldn't see how many hands there were, but a majority of the people said, after they had been evenly split, a majority said they were thinking about voting for Donald Trump, given that guy who was at the debate stage behind me last night, as opposed to the guy who was at the debate 2 weeks earlier.
Right, so we've been breaking this down, and we will for the next 90 minutes. We understand we're probably going to be having Kellyanne Conway on, as well as Vice Presidential Mike Pence. But here's the question. When we actually get the polls, this is going to be the most impactful poll ever, from the Friday tape revelation to the Sunday debate conclusion. When we get a poll on Thursday, we don't have any idea what it's going to say because we can't gauge the impact yet. Correct, Steve?
Well, from the focus group, watching them for 100 minutes, what it seemed like, everybody going in, didn't know what to think about how Donald Trump was going to explain remorsefully what happened on that bus with Billy Bush. But after they heard what he said, okay, move on.
I think the one word he said, when he said it's embarrassing, I think that's when it might have turned a little bit. I think women may, because you kind of feel sorry for someone that's embarrassed, and you're glad to see them being remorseful, especially after those comments.
Right. Meanwhile, 20 minutes now before the top of the hour. Coming up straight ahead, Vice Presidential nominee Mike Pence joins us live. Does he still see eye to eye with Donald Trump? After all, he disagreed with what they said was Mike Pence's policy on the stage last night.
And it was one of Donald Trump's best jabs of the night. Listen.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton. Are the honesty attacks working? Pete Hegseth and former Senator Scott Brown are rolling in to the stage in their golf carts. Of course, they're being competitive in racing. That'll be next.
Of course, we're responsible should they bang into each other.